You've just entered the no delusion zone. I'm David DeBatto. Today, again, this is the newest in a series of short podcasts that I'm doing where I pick one topic to discuss, and it's just a conversation between me and you, a monologue, if you will. Today's topic is the phone call that was made between President Donald Trump and President Vladimir Putin. As reported in various media platforms today, Donald Trump made a phone call to Putin in Moscow where they discussed the war in Ukraine and possible negotiations, or at least the start of negotiations. According to sources, they spoke for about an hour and a half, which is pretty long, considering the circumstances and the fact that that's not how usually these kinds of calls go, or at least they don't last that long. What is disturbing about the initial reports of this phone call, and again, these are initial reports, there's nothing concrete, but put together with the other statements that were made by official sources in the Trump administration and now from the Kremlin, it paints a disturbing picture in terms of what the peace talks, the negotiations may look like when they begin. What I'm talking about is that a few days ago, the envoy, President Trump's envoy to Russia and Ukraine to negotiate any peace settlement between Russia and Ukraine, retired General Kellogg, made statements to the fact such that the West was prepared to allow Putin to remain in all of the occupied territories. That includes the Donbass and Crimea. The West was also prepared to lift most or all of the sanctions against Russia. The West was also prepared to disregard all of the criminal charges that have been levied against Putin and several of his top henchmen and women for war crimes and crimes against humanity. We wouldn't honor them. And lastly, Kellogg stated that it's possible that the West would not push, pressure, or demand that Russia pay for reparations for the rebuilding of Ukraine after the war is over, at least after a ceasefire has been initiated. Again, these are just statements. Nothing has been settled, so we'll have to take that with a grain of salt. But since General Kellogg in the past has been a very strong critic of Russia, stating that you can't trust anything that Russia or Putin says, these are pretty disappointing statements coming from him, kind of almost an about face. Well, what happened today added a little doom and gloom to my opinion of what may happen in these negotiations. The word coming out of the Kremlin, according to Peskov, the Kremlin spokesman, was that President Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin was very amenable to negotiations, to talks with President Trump about Ukraine, as long as the original reason for the war and Russia getting involved in this special military operation were honored. Now, the Kremlin didn't elaborate on that, but we all know that the original reason for the invasion of Ukraine by Russia was because Putin believes in his crazy, irrational mind that NATO was threatening Russia, that they were encircling Mother Russia and were poised to attack through Ukraine. And therefore, in order to save the long-suffering Russian people and defend the territorial integrity of Russia, Russia had to attack Ukraine. Not only that, he also said that Ukraine was run by Nazis, neo-Nazis, led by that gay neo-Nazi of all of them, Zelensky. That Jewish gay Nazi, as a matter of fact, Zelensky. So Putin's main goals, main reason for initiating a war in Ukraine was the NATO encroachment of Russia and their imminent attack and invasion of Russia and the denazification and demilitarization of Ukraine. If that is what he is going to base any peace negotiations on, any ceasefire talks, and Kellogg and Trump, through Kellogg, agree to this, arguably without even Zelensky in the picture, well, obviously that's a disaster. It's not only a disaster, it's a catastrophe and a kick in the gut for Ukraine, for all the Ukrainians who have suffered, who have died, who have been wounded, who have been displaced, made homeless, had their lives ruined, had their entire country devastated by relentless, inhuman attacks by Russia for almost exactly 3 years. And possibly the criminal charges against Putin and his regime would be dropped. Possibly reparations would not be asked of the Kremlin. And possibly the illegally seized territories within Ukraine, Donbass, Crimea, would be awarded to Russia. Unbelievable. Of course, again, that's not the final negotiations. It's not written in stone. Things may change a little bit or even a lot between now and whenever this negotiation period ends. The other talk that's been in a lot of the media is that some kind of NATO or Western supplied defense force, occupying force, peacekeeping force will be placed into the occupied territories as a buffer against Russian aggression. Now, that's ridiculous because that's so open-ended that I'm not sure they'd ever agree with what would have to be done. How many troops? For how long? What would be the point? What's the goal? What would they have to do? What's the mission? What are they expected to do? What are the rules of engagement? Can they shoot back? If so, how far? Can they shoot into Russia? What about air defense, anti-drone defense? That's just the tip of the iceberg. It goes on and on and on. I'm sure that's going to be hashed out endlessly, but it's a mess. And I can't imagine Putin even agreeing to that. But if he does, he's not going to honor any agreement. He's going to take that time, if a ceasefire happens, peace negotiations happen, to rearm, to rebuild his army, which has suffered a lot. And then he's going to attack. He's going to attack again. He can't do it now, so this would be the breathing room he needs. He's whipped. He couldn't take the rest of Ukraine if he tried, and he's tried. No, he would use any ceasefire, with or without a NATO peacekeeping force, to rearm, regroup, replan, retrench, and attack. He's not going to stop. And if the West, Trump, or any of the NATO leaders think that he is, they're nuts. No, this reeks, this smells to the high heaven. Again, this is just what came out today. It stinks. It's not finalized for sure. But again, like I said, General Kellogg has made statements in the recent past alluding to the fact that a lot of these inferences, a lot of these comments that have come out of the Kremlin today may be based on what they are considering. And look, Trump doesn't give a damn about Ukraine or Ukrainians. He's a transactional kind of a guy. If he can get anything out of Putin for him personally, he'll take it. And he will throw Ukraine under the bus in a heartbeat. So I don't expect anything good from this. Yes, there's this whole rare earth for arms situation that's being bantied about where Ukraine may give the rights or just flat out give $500 billion worth of rare minerals, rare earth that's contained in eastern Ukraine to America in exchange for arms, ammunition, and military aid. But that's a whole other issue. We can talk about that in a future podcast. But right now, we're looking at the start of what I believe are going to be very, very negative negotiations and some kind of ceasefire agreement in Ukraine in which Russia gets all the advantages and Ukraine gets the shaft. But we'll just have to wait and see. In the meantime, you all take care, stay safe, and stay sane. And while you're doing that, would you please subscribe? Look to the bottom of your screen, hit the subscribe button. I really need your help. Me and all of the other podcasters like me, especially those supporting Ukraine and voicing an opposition to the new oligarchy that we now are living under here in the United States of America. We need your help. There's only a few of us right now, and we're under the gun, literally and figuratively. So please hit the subscribe button, tell others to hit the subscribe button, and then go to buymeacoffee.com and buy me a coffee or 3 or 5. That really helps as well. Again, we need all the help. I need more viewers, more eyeballs, more subscribers to continue doing this because I'm not going anywhere at all. And to all you MAGA people who wish I do go away, sorry, but it ain't happening. If you want to continue to troll me, absolutely go for it. All of your comments, as rude and as childish as they are, just spur me on to make more of these podcasts. So again, you all, except for MAGA and Kremlin wannabes and Kremlin Putin ass kissers, you take care, stay sane, and we'll see you next time.